everyone, welcome to another episode of Sideline Banter, brought to you by Women of Fantasy Football. I am Sam Holt, and of course I am joined by my co-host Derek Tate. Tate, we finally know where all these rookies have landed, or at least most of them, and we finally get to talk about it. It's a good week. Last week was a good week because it was like a pre-Christmas week, and now it's like a post-Christmas tell me what presents you got kind of a week.
Yeah, sometimes you don't always get the Christmas gifts you want, though. So when some of your favorite prospects, you open up the gift and they end up going to the New York Jets or the Cleveland Browns, it feels like getting socks on Christmas. So
that's a really good analogy. Although I'm not going to lie, given that I'm in my late 30s, I still get socks from my parents, and I get excited because I never buy myself socks. Like, it's nice.
I agree. The functionality and practicality of gifts is a bit more useful when you're an adult. I understand.
Yes. Although, a Lego set would be nice, but socks is okay. Like, a constructive wide receiver 7 is the equivalent of socks.
Yes.
But we can talk about
a taxi squad receiver 8. Yes. Not exactly what the doctor ordered on Christmas morning, but sometimes they end up useful.
Exactly. Guys, if you are tuning in live, please throw questions that you may have in the chat. If you are going through some rookie drafts right now, I know I myself just finished one, so Tate, I'll be picking your brain on my picks for sure. But guys, if you have questions on any landing spots for different players or want to, estimate out different trades that you're seeing, please throw those in the chat and we will be happy to answer your questions live. Tate, before we get fully into it, there is a tiny bit of news, because it's not news, that kind of goes into what we're going to be covering. Mm-hmm. And of course, it wouldn't be the off season without me having to talk about the Steelers waiting on a quarterback decision. And we are still waiting on Aaron Rodgers to make a freaking decision. And I know you know how much I hate waiting on a man. I'm livid.
That made me laugh out loud. Yes, I do.
Yeah, I can't do it. No, like make a decision. Otherwise, I'm going to continue swiping. This is ridiculous.
I mean, it sounded like even before we started recording, you had some trouble with a man Uber driver. So yes, waiting on men can be frustrating sometimes.
It is my least favorite thing, is waiting on men. I will wait for my friends, my girlfriends, all day long. But if I have to wait on a man to make a decision, I will pull out my hair.
So Aaron Rodgers is making you pull out your hair, is what you're trying to tell me.
He is. And it's insanely frustrating because you could tell even by the way the Steelers were drafting that they were trying to construct around a roster to provide weapons to Aaron Rodgers. Now, of course, we went and got sniped in the first round too, which was also delightful. The fact that we were counting on the Cowboys to go defense and not counting on them to make a trade while we're on the phone with Makai Lemon, and he's excited to be a Steeler until his phone continues ringing and he's like, "Why are the Eagles calling me?" Thanks for that, Josh, who's not behind the scenes right now, but I know he's going to be watching this episode later and being like, "Haha, Sam, we got you."
Well, I gotta say, what's the lesson we learned here? Maybe don't call the prospect until you are officially on the clock. Who knows if that tipped anything off? Maybe there was already a deal in the works, but
you know what it does? It makes me hate the Cowboys more. Like I don't blame the Eagles. I blame the Cowboys. Is that weird? Is that toxic?
They traded in the division. They permitted, greenlit the Philadelphia Eagles, who have dominated this division over the last few years, to go and get a receiver so it allows them to go ahead and trade A.J. Brown off the roster.
Yeah. Also, why? Like, again, I think at the end of the day, I'm really just the most bad at the Cowboys. Like, yeah, I think that's where I'm at.
You can definitely hold them accountable, but honestly, it may not have worked out too terrible for your Pittsburgh Steelers. In this scenario, they really, with Broderick Jones, I think they really needed to have at least some depth and a second option there. So I don't think it's the end of the world, Sam, even though it would have been really nice to have Makai Lemon.
It would have. It was just embarrassing. I didn't need that. I didn't need that energy. Not when the draft is in Pittsburgh. You've got all this hype. You've got all these terrible towels going. And then you just get sniped round 1. Like,
you totally made up for it by drafting Eli Heidenreich. on day 3. And I know that you have like some of the other Steelers picks too, even though that one was tragic. It got off to a bumpy start.
Yeah.
The Steelers had a good draft.
I think we did too. Actually, you want to know something really awesome about Eli Heidenreich? I
Yeah.
just finished a rookie draft in a dynasty league, Superflex, and I got sniped by like someone took him ahead of me by a round or by 2 picks, and I went and I made a trade with like a 4th round pick for like 2028, and I was like, can I just have him? And they're like,
Please give me Heidenreich. Please.
can I? And they're like, okay, 3rd round 2028. I'm like, fine, yeah, I'll do it. I don't care. Like, I wanted him. I just wanted him. I was like, he's feel like he's gonna be my guy. So
go get your guy. Go get
your guy. Yeah, gotta go get your guy. So I definitely had to do it. But what are you gonna do?
So when it comes to Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers and the whole saga continues, they expected, at least according to reports, for Rodgers to have made his decision before the NFL draft. And
he's in a tent
the NFL draft
somewhere.
came and went, and has not given them his word yet, at least not publicly, that he's going to play this year. So the way that the draft shook out, I certainly think and anticipate that Rodgers is going to be on this roster, but it's got to be uneasy and unsettling and feel like almost a little bit of deja vu from last offseason with Aaron Rodgers. Will he, won't he type thing. But Sam, I want to get your thoughts. We talked about Drew Aller on our pre-draft show, at least I. And he gave me a headache, is how I described it.
Yes.
Now, y'all spent 3rd round draft capital on him. Now, I'm not saying that that's, it's not anywhere near 1st. Obviously, it's a high upside developmental pick if Rodgers doesn't play, or maybe if they like what they see once they get him in the quarterback room. He's got all the physical tools. Mike McCarthy gets to work with him. What are your thoughts on the Pittsburgh Steelers taking Drew Aller and even Jeremy Bernard? I actually kind of like that pick for Pittsburgh.
Jeremy Bernard, I was pretty stoked about, not gonna lie. So that pick I'm quite pleased with. Then when it comes back around to the quarterback situation, let's say that we go into this season without Aaron Rodgers. I do still think if he doesn't make a decision, we end up signing another veteran to bring into training camp with us to create a competition for these young quarterbacks. I'm really curious, because obviously we have Will Howard already, that we have him 1 year under the belt with Aaron Rodgers. He says that he's ready to go. There's a lot that he's saying in media that makes me excited about him, because he's all about the team and saying, like, if Aaron comes back, I'm more than happy to learn from him for another year. If he doesn't, I'm more than ready to start now. Give me the ball, coach, put me in. I love that attitude. Really feel like it benefits these rookie quarterbacks to sit a year underneath and behind somebody to be learning a lot. I would trust Will Howard a little bit more, given that he's been in this scenario a little bit longer, just to be, a student of the game at that level, more so than Drew. But you tell me, in terms of the comps between the two, which I should rather have under center, because for me, I would trust the guy that's got a little bit more time. Obviously, you've got Mason Rudolph there too. And, he's been someone that we've started in the past and has had, little moments of success. I wouldn't say long stretches of it, but this is not a situation where I feel great going into the season. If my quarterback locker room is just Mason, Will, and Drew, I have concerns.
You should have concerns if that is what the Steelers enter training camp with at the quarterback position. So
yeah,
honestly, in all likelihood, Mason would be the week 1 starter if Aaron Rodgers does not come back. Yeah. So for me, I understand that Will Howard has a year of experience in the NFL, but it's a completely different system, Sam, completely different coaching staff. So, and this is the guy that McCarthy and this organization in 2026 decided as, hey, we think we want to try to see what this kid has in our system. I would have to probably they would want Drew Aller to beat out Will, like at least to secure the QB2 job. I still think it would be Mason if Aaron Rodgers decides to hang it up for good. So it's not exciting. It's not the answer you want. I think Drew Aller has a lot more physical tools. Sure, Howard had some nice moments in college and everything like that. And it's nice that they're saying that, he's a professional. He's showing up. He's putting the work in. He's saying all the right things. Seems like a team guy. Sure. Awesome.
Yeah.
But Aller's also got a howitzer and was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school and after his 2024 season, Sam, there was a conversation about him potentially being a first rounder if he would have came out. So the flashes are probably enough to entice a coaching staff to really want him to win the job, but it would be an interesting competition for sure.
Interesting. Sure.
Bad for you? Maybe.
Bad for me as a fan. Am I glad that I re-upped on my ulcer medication not long ago? Yes, absolutely. I'm going to need all the help I can to get through this off season as we try and see what the Steelers are going to look like to start this season. So I had to bring up the Aaron Rodgers news, though I didn't want to. Now we can talk about more fun things. Let's talk about a good chunk of these rookies that I think are going to be top of the board for a lot of these rookie drafts. Of course, very top of the list, we have to talk about Jeremiah Love. We talked about possible landing spots for running backs and Cardinals being one, but it already felt like it was going to be a crowded backfield. And of course, it just went and got more crowded. However, Jeremiah Love being the top prospect that he is, going 3rd overall in the draft, feels like Tyler Algier just lost out on some big playability.
Well, I would say that Tyler Algier got Tyler Algier.
He did. He got vultured. It's so early. April's too early for vulturing, but it kind of works.
Jeremiah Love shareholders are going to have to experience and maybe have PTSD if they also have shares of Bijan and watching years of Bijan lose meaningful goal line work to Tyler Algier. We'll see how that all plays out, but all you need is love. If you have the 101 this year, it is an exciting time because Sam, when I mentioned the Cardinals, that's as high as I saw him potentially going. It wouldn't have been what I would have done, but but I understand that Love was potentially the number 1 overall player on multiple teams' draft board entering this NFL draft. And if that's how the Cardinals felt, and they felt like they were getting the best player, they know what they're getting. They're getting a starting caliber player right out of the box, potential Pro Bowler, maybe even an All-Pro, if it all eventually comes together there in Arizona. From a dynasty perspective, you got to be excited about it because I'm not going to be nervous about Tyler Algier. Bijan Robinson was still a surefire top 5 running back, even with Algier in town. So, unless Jeremiah Love is running behind an offensive line that resembles last year's Las Vegas Raiders, which is a possibility, I just feel like the safety of the investment in Love because of the quality of prospect he is and the draft capital the Cardinals gave up to bring him on board, there's no discussion for me anyway, or no justification for any other player at 101 in Dynasty rookie drafts, regardless of format.
Agreed. We've got some lovely friends in the chat. So on the same subject of Love, I want to bring them up. First of all, Albert's joining as he always does. Thank you so much, Albert. What's up? My good friend Kelly in Phoenix is on. Lovely women of fantasy football. Kelly, I don't want to make you cry. We are talking about your Cardinals, so let's dissect this because Kelly is very active in the chat. Kelly, we're not going to make you cry. She's saying, I'm attached to this running back room and 2 people will have to go. So this is a great question for you, Tate. She said she's afraid that either Trey Benson or Bam Knight will be out. When you look at this running back room, right off at the top, you've got James Conner, again, Trey Benson, Tyler Algier, Zonovan Knight, Corey Kinnear, and then obviously Jeremiah Love. Just going down the list as it's currently written. We have to go into training camp. Likely the jobs are going to be slim pickings in terms of who's going to make it. But in terms of who gets cut, and then also how soon we see Love jump into success at this role, who do you feel like is the first ones to come off the list? Because, sorry, Kelly, I do feel like Trey Benson's going to end up on the chopping block.
Have you ever seen the movie Goodfellas?
Yeah.
Do you remember the scene where they thought Tommy was a made man and everybody was all excited? That was Dynasty shareholders of Trey Benson when they drafted him 2 years ago in rookie drafts. Well, this offseason, with Jeremiah Love being, drafted at number 3 overall, them signing Tyler Algier in free agency, they basically took Tommy into the room, and you know what happened if you've seen that movie. That's exactly what happened to Trey Benson's future with the Arizona Cardinals.
Poor Trey.
So, Trey Benson is definitely the odd man out the equation. His days are numbered, if not already gone.
Yeah. And then in terms of how you see them splitting, because I have heard the comparison too, that obviously Love out the gate, if he's going to take over the role right away. I question that just because obviously you had the veteran presence that is James Conner. Injury history is a concern. Tyler Algier, again, being a veteran presence. Could this be more something where we see the likes of, when Jahmyr Gibbs went to the Lions and he had to sit behind David Montgomery for a little bit before he started to see some big work and carries? And maybe this is something where Love is going to be a slow burn for fantasy managers to start the season, that we have to get the payoff a little bit later.
Maybe. I don't want to be completely dismissive of that thought process. I just have a really, really hard time imagining the Arizona Cardinals and, a first-time head coach, betting his, his first season by taking Jeremiah Love at number 3 overall and not immediately having a plan to deploy him early, often, and always. So maybe for the first game or two, there's a little bit closer to like a 50-50 split, but I have a really hard time with how dynamic and how much of a 3-down back explosive playmaker is that Jeremiah Love is. I just have a really hard time imagining they're going to be taking him off the field a whole lot in 2026.
I think that's fair, but I do think it's worth an argument, because when you looked at rookie running backs last year, Ashton Genty didn't pop off the board as quickly as we wanted him to start the season. Omarion Hampton obviously dealt with an injury. Bill Krosky-Merritt was someone that jumped up draft boards late in the season. I'm sorry. You got to. There's buyer's remorse sometimes. I don't want to live in this time, but I think that it's a reality, and maybe I just want to make other people sad the same way I am about the Aaron Rodgers situation. But I do feel like it's worth talking about. Could there be any level, or do you just have so much confidence in his talent that he's not going to get buried?
Oh, yeah. I don't think that there's a chance that he gets buried as far as opportunities go. The only thing that I'm worried about is more so the efficiency side of the coin. Like Ashton Genty last year, who was running behind a struggling Raiders offensive line. And of course, Geno Smith had a horrible year, and they just didn't generate many scoring opportunities. What gives you a little bit, me anyway, a little bit more optimism about Jeremiah Love, they're bringing back Jacoby Brissett. Brissett was good. He was talked about it a lot. He threw over 250 yards and I think like 8 straight starts. So it is something where this offense was functional and at least competitive and competent, with Jacoby Brissett under center. So more scoring opportunities only means Jeremiah Love is probably going to have an opportunity with the volume I expect to be able to, be a top 10 running back in year number 1.
I mean, that's what you'd hope. Kelly is all over this chat, and so I'm going to throw a few more of these comments in here.
Jump in, Kelly.
Kelly saying, the Cardinals O-line is as weak as wet cardboard. I hope it's improved this year. Very fair and very astute. Kelly knows her team better than most. She's also commenting here saying they'll only keep 3. Connor has already said he wants to split carries, which I do think makes a lot of sense for him. So I think it is that combination, and I guess the curiosity of how things are going to go in terms of mouths to feed across Algier, Connor, and then Love, and how quickly he gets used. To your point, new head coach, new situation, wants to hit the ground running with the right tools. I'm just really curious, and maybe it's because I had to watch Ashton Genty cook on some of my teams last year, didn't get that love right out the gate. I'm just curious how we see those carries splitting out right at the beginning, because James Conner at healthy is a fantastic back that you wouldn't want to necessarily sideline. I
get it. I understand. And so was David Montgomery, right? I mean, David Montgomery was a really good back, and but that was if this ends up being a split, Sam, then I'm far lower on Love
Yeah.
because this is not the Detroit offense. This is the Arizona Cardinals offense. And Kelly aptly, and accurately diagnosed the offensive line outlook. Now, of course, with a new offensive mind at head coach, we'll see how he makes it work. But yeah, they're not. I don't see them being a dominant unit, even with a new coaching staff. So, yeah, James Conner's health is going to be the big factor here, Sam. I mean, I guess the thing that confuses me the most is if you knew you were picking number 3 overall, right?
Yeah.
When shortly after when your regular season ended, you knew that, and yet you went and paid Tyler Algier anyway. And you're keeping James Conner, and you draft Jeremiah Love at 3 overall. Why even bring in Algier?
Well,
that doesn't make sense to me.
I actually think that it can, because going back to one of the other references that I already made with Omarion Hampton coming in as a rookie last year and then getting hurt, I do feel like given the position can be so volatile, it does go in their best interest to create depth at that position if they're trying to create plays where there's a lot of opportunities and they don't want to put that pressure on him immediately. It makes sense to have Algier there as a veteran back who understands how to run different schemes and is very versatile in terms of passing and running plays. It makes a lot of sense to have him as just that extra depth, and also to take that pressure off of Love right at the beginning.
Sure, I just think it's poor
too many eggs in the same basket.
Financial allocation of resources when you're a team that's probably not going to make a huge jump, specifically in that division. In 2026, I just wouldn't have spent that money if you knew you wanted to go the direction of Jeremiah Love. But yeah, I'm betting that Love is going to be the bell cow feature back player. And sure, maybe the first month temper your expectations, but past that, Love's the real deal.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of different rankings that I've seen already for him all over draft boards in terms of where you're grabbing him, again, depending on Superflex or single quarterback leaves. In terms of redraft, I'm curious to see how that plays out. Rookie drafts, he is the 101, and given how, again, volatile the position is for Dynasty, it makes a lot of sense to pay that premium for that position. So I don't feel like just because he's got these other backs ahead of him, it's making me move him down the board in terms of where I would take him. He's still an elite talent. And then I think, it just makes sense. You'd pay the premium if you wanted that 101 pick. You're going to have to pay a lot to get that pick.
Oh yeah. I'm not even bothering. I don't want to pay 4 first.
Too expensive for you.
Yeah. Too expensive for my taste. So
fair. All right. Well, we've got plenty of other players to talk about, guys. Again, if you have any questions about the incoming rookies or trades that you're seeing, please let us know and throw them in the chat. We'd be happy to answer them. Tate, let's go ahead and just switch it up a little bit and let's talk about quarterback, because obviously we have to talk about Fernando Mendoza. We knew he was going, 101 overall, and now he is finally there with the Raiders. He properly entered the offices and did not step on the logo, so we're not jinxed yet. I don't know if you saw that video, but he managed to walk around it, so happy for him. How should fantasy managers look at him, I think, from a single quarterback perspective versus super flex? We could start single first, obviously, because he's gonna take some time, and we have to see how training camp goes in terms of how he's going to play, because at the moment it's going to be Kirk Cousins starting until he fully feels ready to go.
Yeah, but I mean, when we're playing Dynasty, I'm not particularly at the quarterback position. When a team spends the 101, Sam, they're obviously betting their future on him, and he will be a starter there in short order, I imagine. Now, I agree with you that Kirk Cousins is probably going to be the week 1 starter. Probably, I would say at least a month, probably the first 4 games. So, I mean, it's not, from a Dynasty lens, that's not changing my rankings at all. No. So in 1 QB leagues, I have him right now behind Love, Cornell Tate, Jordan Tyson, Kai Lemon, Kenyon Sadiq, and Jadarian Price. So I guess the 7th player on my board in 1 QB leagues. In Superflex, he's second behind Jeremiah Love just because of the security of of that position, and obviously you wanting to stockpile quarterbacks in that type of format where you can start two players. So that's the difference in those two formats, which he is the biggest probably mover amongst the different formats.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Which is why you're seeing him kind of bounce around again, depending on the league that you're in. I guess I'm curious to see how things go as we move forward towards training camp and how things are looking. And we haven't even seen the schedule released yet for the 2026 season.
Sure.
I would be curious to see what the over-under bets are once the schedule comes out as to what week we imagine him likely getting the start. Depending on the difficulty of the schedule, it could be a fun little side bet in Vegas to see if we want to place that.
Yeah, I'm just not going to get super excited about Mendoza this year because, again, we love Brock Bowers, but outside of Brock Bowers, still some concerns.
Sure.
As far as who he's throwing to in 2026. So Kirk Cousins, again, competent quarterback, and I imagine Clint Kubiak and the rest of the front office there with the Raiders making it a priority to make sure that they get a veteran quarterback that can come in and run his scheme, and Mendoza does not have to be rushed on the field. So the over-unders are going to be interesting for Mendoza, but I would say I have a hard time imagining he's not the starter by week 8 at the latest.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Let's move on to some wide receivers because there's plenty of those across the board. Some teams that I think should have picked up receivers that didn't, but then there's a lot that did and creates an interesting fantasy value across the board.
Yeah.
I want to talk about your Carnell Tate because you have him right behind Jeremiah Love, at least how you have him written in your rankings on our show notes. So I want to hear your love for him and why you think this is such a good fit for him with the Titans.
So I kind of believe that when it comes to trying to determine the top 3 receivers, because I think that they're all in the same tier, Sam. Mm-hmm. We're talking Carnell Tate, Jordan Tyson, and Mekhi Lemon. So right now, who has the clearest path to number 1 volume in targets entering the season? It's Carnell Tate. And I know that Cam Ward had a disappointing rookie year, but again, Brian Daboll is now in town as an OC. If you have questions about him as a head coach, that's fine. Did some good work with Josh Allen once upon a time. Okay.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yes, it didn't work out quite as well with Daniel Jones, even though he did have the one season where Daniel Jones played well enough to win a playoff game and get a contract extension. But the point of the matter is, I still think Brian Daboll is a good offensive-minded coach, which should, I think, certainly help Cam Ward compared to the dysfunction that was in that locker room last year. So I look at Carnell Tate as kind of the guy with the highest floor in this tier. Coming out of Ohio State, what I feel like we're getting is like a T. Higgins or a George Pickens. Okay. And I know that, Pickens has been a little bit more volatile and Higgins has been really, really consistent. It's just that outside contested catch winner that can give you a little bit of vertical juice. Certainly a red zone threat. It catches everything in his zip code. When it comes to Tyson, it's the injuries that scare me the most. I actually like the Kellen Moore scheme fit, and Tyler Shuck. It seems as if, Sam, that they kind of want to build around Tyler Shuck. They liked what they saw over the back half of last year. So Tyson, though, is kind of the 1B to Olave's 1A, right?
Yeah. In terms of how you're splitting out that volume, again, to go with that, who's the next best receiver to your point, have the most potential high ceiling or immediacy to wide receiver 1 level numbers? I get why you're pushing Tate a little bit higher.
Yeah, that's just for me personally. And if Cam Ward hits and, Brian Daboll gets his hands on him and changes the offensive outlook and runs a competent NFL offense, I think Tate's going to be the beneficiary because look at what else is in that receiver room, Sam. You can't just run with Wan'Dale Robinson being your only upgrade in the receiver room for Cam Ward. That would be doing your own franchise quarterback a disservice. So I love going and getting Carnell Tate. And yeah, if Iomanor or DK, if any of those other young receivers, emerge as a consistent like number 2 or number 3 option, great.
Yeah.
But now you address the position with Carnell Tate. So, and then Sam, I want to talk about Mekhi Lemon, and I want to get your rankings with these 3 in this tier.
Okay.
Because Mekhi Lemon, right now, AJ Brown's a Philadelphia Eagle. Yes, we expect him to get traded.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say this though, Sam. Like, I don't like the data numbers for what Jalen Hurts does well as a quarterback and what Mekhi Lemon does well as a wide receiver.
Okay.
Like, you think about this Philadelphia offense, a lot of it's built on deep shots down the field, teams loading the box to try to slow down Saquon Barkley. And that's where you had Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown both having a ton of explosive plays down the field. Dallas Goedert's still going to be a nice check down option. Smitty's going to, I think, see a significant bump in targets. So this leaves Mekhi Lemon, who I think is a slot demon, but Jalen Hurts has some of the lowest throw percentage rates across the short and intermediate portion, middle portion of the field. Like, and it's not a high volume passing offense either. So I don't know if it's just, oh, well, when they trade AJ Brown, Mekhi Lemon's just going to fit right in and get all that volume. I don't know if that's the case. I think he's the 3rd best receiver in this class, and he got the first round capital, which makes me feel safe in investing in him. But I do, for anybody that has Lemon at the top over Carnell Tate or over Jordan Tyson, I just don't, I have more concerns that has me bumping him down a little bit.
I think that's really fair, honestly, because when you look at, mouths to feed in terms of who's going to have the best chance at big numbers, I completely agree with you that Tate makes the most sense to be a little bit higher than the others. And then even against, Jordan Tyson, obviously Chris Olave's already cemented himself as the number 1 there. So it does help to have Tyson to compete and be that wide receiver to just split coverage with. But then you get to the Eagles and you're getting these layers now of competition for targets. And I do agree with you. I mean, everything's kind of all but written in stone at this point that AJ Brown will end up being a New England Patriot. But with that aside, I think to your point that what else does Lemon do here for him in this offense? The size, I think, is also going to be a little, I wouldn't say an issue, but it's a little concern. AJ Brown's being a little bit taller, Mekhi Lemon being a tiny bit shorter.
Now you also got 2 small receivers.
Now you have 2,
Smitty and Lemon.
Yeah, so like they're kind of too similar, and that's what I think helped between AJ Brown and Smitty was having that difference of style of player, and you don't have that difference so much with Lemon to Devontae Smith. And then you've also got, Dallas Goedert's on 1 last year deal with the Eagles, and really curious to, as we get to talking about tight ends, how we feel about Eli Stowers being here. Also a possible, receiving option for Jalen Hurts. And when you look at the numbers, like you pointed out, in terms of what Jalen Hurts has been doing over the last couple years, he did have, over 3,000 passing yards last year. But in terms of his completion percentage, that did drop. I feel like the efficiency for the Eagles dropped off from what they had done in their Super Bowl season. So there are some other concerns, I think, that they need to address in order to make this an effective pick and to keep that volume going up, just because those numbers aren't exactly lining up for how you'd want it. You'd want to see everything moving up, and there's just some things back and forth that are making you question that consistency.
Right. I mean, it doesn't help. Now, some will look at Sean Mannion becoming the new OC as definitely help, right? Because we talked about it nauseum and questioned some of the play calling creativity last year for Philadelphia's offense and why maybe that being a reason why they were struggling. Sure. And that's completely valid, right? So all that being said, though, again, the passing volume isn't traditionally high in Jalen Hurts led Philadelphia Eagles offenses. And when this team is operating at its best, it's with Saquon Barkley running the football. A lot of tush pushes when they get down close. And, Mekhi Lemon, while he is, I think he's a feisty contested catch physical player at the point of attack, he's not a big body. So I don't know if he's going to get the same type of red zone workload that we saw for AJ Brown, which then again kind of caps that fantasy ceiling just a little bit, Sam. And Mekhi Lemon's not a speed demon. Like, Smitty can give you those vertical explosive plays.
Sure.
I'm not really. Lemon's more of a yak guy, and he's a damn good one. It's just stylistically, I'm interested to see how Sean Mannion tries to get the most out of Mekhi Lemon, because they certainly believe in him, because they traded up for him, spent first round draft capital on him. It's going to be fascinating to see how Lemon looks in this offense and how this whole Philly offense looks in 2026.
No, I completely agree. Let's talk about because we've got a couple other receivers that I want to make sure we discuss, but there's kind of a little chunk here that I think is interesting in terms of how they play out for fantasy value, in terms of who you're trying to grab for that upside. And I want to talk about the Browns versus the Jets in this, which sounds gross, but there's a lot of additions made here that I still think are worth discussing. You know, you've got a mix of new receivers there for the Browns. You've got a mix of new options here for the Jets. I know you're really high on Kenyon Sadiq at the tight end position. He's got that incredible prowess. Why should people be excited about him? You know, tight end premium aside, for all the reasons that we love, but tight ends have been a position too where I feel like there's a lot of leagues, at least some that I'm in, where we're questioning why we even have this position because we're looking for more upside and things keep leveling off. Is Kenyon Sadiq a player that you think could probably have a big mark on this 2026 season?
Again, with Geno Smith, it just makes me a little bit cautious to predict that another rookie tight end is going to just, blow the brakes off the narrative that rookie tight ends can't have fantasy success. We've seen that myth debunked over the last couple of years. Sadiq, though, offers a lot of, in the right offense, can certainly present all kinds of mismatches, specifically with his formation versatility, his ability to, not only run routes, win at the top of the stem, but also as a yak threat. Like he is from a prospect profile point of view, he's got a great one. And then guys like him, they have a pretty good hit rate traditionally. So I like the player. I just think you got to have to temper your expectations in 2026, because we know Geno Smith is likely a lame duck candidate at quarterback.
Oh, how mean. How could you? Shots fired.
I know,
poor Geno. Rude.
So
rude.
Sadiq, I'm still going to believe and bet on the talent. I'm going to believe in the prospect. And while it sucks for Mason Taylor shareholders, like that also RIP. Sadiq, though, it's kind of like similar to when the Raiders took Brock Bowers, when they took Michael Mayer in the second round the year before. Like Bowers is the better receiving tight end prospect, clearly. And I think it's the same thing here with Kenyon Sadiq. It's not that Mason Taylor's a bad player. It's just that Sadiq is special. And, you don't invest that type of draft capital if you're not having a specific plan for him. So I think he'll be a good candidate, a buy candidate next offseason when the Jets are going to get an upgrade inevitably in the 2027 NFL draft.
I think that's fair. I just think it's interesting because, these are some big names that everyone's going to be very excited about going into rookie drafts, and new talent, especially at this position, given, again, there's so many tight end premium leagues. You want to take flyers on players. Last year was one where I took several. I took flyers on Tyler Warren and Colston Loveland, was very happy with the results on those.
Yeah.
I don't know that we're going to be getting, we're going to be getting all the cherries when we pull that handle for the tight ends this year. And I just feel like because you've hyped up his prowess so much in terms of him being a great candidate, I just want to know if we should temper any expectations. And I feel like you kind of hit the nail on the head with those expectations, or tempered expectations begin and end with Geno Smith.
Yeah, 100%. And, when we look at the rest of the tight ends, Eli Stowers certainly stands out to me because of the draft capital that Philly put in there. We also know that Dallas Goedert's been rumored in the past to be potentially available via trade. It just hasn't happened. So it looks like this could be the last season for Dallas Goedert with the Philadelphia Eagles. And that would obviously clear the runway for Stowers, who is a very, very solid pass catching tight end prospect. I have some questions about him being potentially an inline tight end as a blocker, but as a pure pass catching weapon, certainly very, very, very capable in that regard. Other guys that stood out to me, Oscar Dell and Justin Jolie going to the Denver Broncos. Sam, keep an eye on that Joker role there in the Sean Payton offense.
Oh my gosh. I'll keep
For
an
the
eye for
seventh
sure.
year in a row, I feel like I'm saying it with Sean Payton and a tight end, Greg Dulcich.
Oh my God.
Started the unraveling process for me, but
Well, let's stay with the Jets for one more minute because I want to talk about Omar Cooper Jr., who
yeah,
third overall, 30th overall, going to the Jets. Another playmaker there. And when you look at the depth chart in terms of who their passing options are, obviously you have Garrett Wilson right at the top, Adonai Mitchell, and Omar Cooper has a really interesting opportunity here as a wide receiver 3 to potentially bump into wide receiver 2 conversation. Again, this kind of begins and ends with how successful can Geno Smith be this season. It's just interesting from a dynasty perspective in terms of, like we already talked about, paths to success. Carnell Tate having a great premium option there. Jordan Tyson obviously has a really great opportunity to become wide receiver 2 there for the Saints. This is another interesting one when you compare this situation to like the Mekhi Lemon one that we just had.
right.
Path to success, Omar Cooper Jr., should he be a name that dynasty managers, if you're sitting a little bit lower on the board, still be excited that you maybe could grab someone like him with that level of path to success?
Yeah, I love his ability as once he gets the ball in his hands as a playmaker. There, I see a little bit of Jarvis Landry. He's got some dog in him. Tough to
Okay.
get to the ground. Like,
Yeah.
some questions about, how polished is he as a route runner, but the bigger question is, what's his value? You're going to really, speaking of having to temper your expectations, if you're having to do it for Sadiq, you're damn sure having to do it for Omar Cooper because you got Garrett Wilson there. Garrett Wilson's going to be the target hog no matter who they add to the offense. Garrett Wilson is the wide receiver 1. He's going to see wide receiver 1 type volume. Got Breece Hall out of the backfield. Now you got Sadiq, who is, and Mason Taylor, probably a little bit more 12 personnel, Sam. Maybe they want to run the ball quite a bit. That makes sense if you're the Jets. You don't want to get into shootouts. Try to control the clock. But Cooper, is Geno Smith going to be able to make 3 pass catchers fantasy relevant in 2026? My answer is definitively no. So there's going to be an odd man out. I think Cooper is the odd man out this year. Again, we can have a different conversation and revisit this depending on who the Jets add to the quarterback room in 2027, which certainly would help Cooper's fantasy outlook and it certainly is ceiling. I just worry about this year being a bit rough for Omar Cooper.
Yeah, I think that's fair. We've got some people joining us in the chat. Mr. Scampers is here. Good evening, sir. And you are just in time. We actually just finished talking about the Jets. So
and now we're going to talk about the Browns.
And now we're going to talk about the Browns. So saddle up, get ready. But we've got plenty of players to talk about. I just want to talk about these teams because when you look how we talked about each of these teams as we were breaking down divisions before we even got to the draft, we were discussing teams that had made offseason moves or hadn't and needed to address a lot of these positions and a lot of gaps. Jets and Browns were those teams that we were really questioning what is going to be possible fantasy relevant. So it makes sense to kind of talk about them together, but it doesn't feel great. So let's move on to the Browns. We've got 2 wide receivers I want to talk about with them. We've got Casey Concepcion and Denzel Boston. This was a wide receiver room that when we talked about them literally last week, my question was, why would we bother talking about this wide receiver room? Because there's nothing to talk about here. I mean, Jerry Jeudy is there. We don't really know. I don't know if you have a take on who's going to be the starting quarterback under center to begin 2026 season. Is it Shedeur Sanders? There's so many things that we don't know, but at least we now have 2 brand new rookie receivers that they can play with.
That's why everybody is trying to dunk on how bad this 2026 rookie class is.
Yeah.
In all reality, if Casey Concepcion goes to the Kansas City Chiefs, or if Denzel Boston goes to the Washington Commanders, we feel a lot differently about this class. But the fact that the Cleveland Browns and the New York Jets had to just make sure that we have no fun in our life if you have picks 107 to 112 or early seconds, it's gut-wrenching because they decided to double down and it just, oh gosh. So my strategy, Sam, is I don't want to take, even as much as I like these guys as prospects, my soul will not allow me to take Kenyon Sadiq and Omar Cooper Jr. in the same rookie draft, right?
Yeah.
Same thing with the Cleveland Browns.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think the starter of the 2027 Cleveland Browns at quarterback is on the 2026 roster currently. So that means no matter who or how many of the quarterbacks currently in that room, which they added another day 3 quarterback, by the way, in Taylor Green, awesome. There's no way that I can feel great about either of these guys. Will they both have an opportunity? Is there opportunity there? Yes, there is. But personally, I had Concepcion and Denzel Boston in the same damn tier anyway, which means my approach to this, I would just rather take the Browns receiver in rookie drafts that that's cheaper, whichever
Sure.
one comes last.
Yeah.
So that's just my opinion because I think both of them have an opportunity. I think they're both the same tier of prospect. Both have similar upside. It's just they're both on the same damn team, which doesn't currently have an answer at who's going to play damn quarterback. So damn it.
I know. It sucks. We can't have nice things. Scampers in the chat saying Munkin blew up the wide receiver room. Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did. Blew it up.
No, he's blowing up our rookie drafts too. Thanks.
Blowing it up. It's gross. Well, I had to get that out of the way.
All the optimism there. This is
all the optimism. I know. People are just, you come for the fantasy analysis, you stay for the positivity. Thank you guys for bearing with us on that. I want to talk about other players that you have the potential to get excited about.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
I want to talk about Jadarian Price, new running back for the Seahawks, getting taken at the end there of the first round. When you look at incoming running backs, it's such a volatile position. Again, this was a class where it felt like obviously the tier drop off after Love was significant. However, given that Kenneth Walker is now a Kansas City Chief, Zach Charbonnet has been dealing with injuries, and we need to address the running back position for Seattle. To have someone to bring up into this offense, let's give some fantasy managers, some dynasty managers, some excitement about Jadarian Price joining the Seahawks.
Yeah, if there was one definitive winner from the rookie draft or the NFL draft and saw their stock rise significantly, it's definitely Jadarian Price. Yeah. I think he's right there now in that tier with even like Kenyon Sadiq. Like, it's something that draft capital, first round draft capital, Sam, it's legitimate. Mm-hmm. It certainly means this team's investing at that position. We just saw that what Kenneth Walker did to help them win a Super Bowl, and you saw how much of a priority it was to re-sign him this offseason. They didn't. They let him walk, which means Zach Charbonnet, who's entering the final year of his rookie deal, and he's not even going to be a lock to be ready for the start of the season, Sam. He suffered a devastating season-ending injury late in the season. So it's, I mean, I think Charbonnet is probably a better player. I certainly thought he was a better prospect than Jadarian Price entering college, but situation's a situation. So Price is going to have every opportunity to carve out a huge role in this Seahawks offense, and it very well could be very fantasy relevant. Jadarian Price is certainly somebody worth getting excited about, even though I would have gone Jonah Coleman, but Jadarian Price is still, watching him on tape, he definitely looks like he has the potential to be a leading back and certainly fell into arguably the best landing spot he could have in this draft.
Yeah. I think I'm just excited because, again, when we talk about dynasty prospects and those that we want to have path to success, this is a very immediate path to success, given the fact that obviously Charbonnet is coming off of an injury, that the kind that he is. When you compare this to the conversation we just had with Jeremiah Love, where you've got James Conner, you've got Tyler Algier, you're curious to see how those carries shake out. This could be week one, depending on Zach and how he's doing. Jadarian Price is on the field week one.
Oh, I think he's definitely on the field. Maybe Emmanuel Wilson has something to say about it, but or Kenny McIntosh or George Holani. But my expectation, they took him in the first round, and the Seahawks didn't have many picks in this draft, so they expect him to come in and make an immediate impact for a team that is clearly trying to run it back and win another Super Bowl in 2026.
Absolutely. And I really like his upside and options for them there.
100.
So, okay, we're kind of hitting close to our time for the show this week. Is there one player of these top 15 that you want to make sure that we talk about before we close out this week? Because we've got all this off season. We have so much time to talk about all these rookies. We will continue to go through the rest of them as we get closer towards OTAs and practices and all these other fun things, and hopefully some more news. Hopefully we do finally get the news that AJ Brown is officially going to be a Patriot. We get the news that Aaron Rodgers has decided to go and be a cruise director and he is no longer going to play in the NFL. I don't know what the news is going to be, but I would like some sort of news. So maybe there's some last moment of positivity. We can talk about one of these rookies before we close out.
Jonah Coleman for the Denver Broncos.
Okay.
That's going to be the guy that I personally surprised that he slipped all the way to the 4th round. I feel I sold all my shares last year because I started to feel like I was seeing the writing on the wall with RJ Harvey.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, oh boy, not exactly the biggest vote of confidence when they take a back of his size and his caliber. I think Jonah Coleman's a hell of a player.
Yeah.
I really like his vision. I think he's got far more wiggle than you think for a guy that big. I see Sam, I see a little Lev Bell in him as far as his running style, and I think that there's untapped potential as a pass catcher. Now, do I think that I could see him? I would want him to lose a little bit of weight. I'm not saying he's out of shape or anything. I just think that if he's a bit thick, if he's a little bit thinner, I still think he's not going to sacrifice any of the power in the contact balance because he's already a big back. He was like at one point he was I think at 229 at Washington. So, but he's a guy that is very physical. So I would love to see Coleman eventually be the leading man in that backfield. And RJ Harvey, Sam, I think he's got, kind of Darren Sproles written all over him now. And I'm starting to see the long-term vision of this backfield in Denver. Because as much as, yes, I know they extended J.K. Dobbins, and Dobbins will certainly, I think, be the lead back in week number 1. But Dobbins has proven that, unfortunately, he has not been able to stay healthy his entire NFL career. So once Coleman gets his shot, I could see Jonah Coleman being a very big contributor to this backfield and potentially a long-term option for Sean Payton in that offense, behind that offensive line, which gets me really excited.
Sure. No, you have to get excited when the offensive line is that good and gives Bo Nix that much time in the pocket to make decisions or to question what he's doing with his life. I feel like there's plenty of upside there. I do think it's interesting for dynasty managers who I myself have some RJ Harvey shares going into this season, and that I haven't taken any extra rookies yet, that we haven't had a rookie draft in those leagues particularly. So it's just interesting to me that you bring up that he is a very similar body comp. He's a tiny bit taller, a tiny bit bigger than RJ Harvey is. And if they went ahead and they grabbed someone else that they must like, his ability to move, his athleticism just a little bit more, gives me some concern, again, as a dynasty manager of several RJ Harvey shares, what I should be doing with him as we go into the season.
Well, Sam, I wasn't encouraged by what I saw from RJ Harvey once J.K. Dobbins went down and it was him to lead the backfield. I thought he had some nice moments, and certainly he had his explosive plays, but I don't think he did enough. Clearly, they re-signed J.K. Dobbins.
Yeah.
He didn't do enough to make Sean Payton go, okay, we're going into the next season. We're gonna hand the keys over to him, right? That's not what happened when you re-sign the injury-prone J.K. Dobbins and you draft a prospect like Jonah Coleman in the 4th round. That's enough to make the alarms go off in my head when it comes to RJ Harvey.
Sure, where there's smoke, there's fire. And Mr. Scamper's jumping in the conversation on this one, too. I'm thinking I don't trust Sean Payton when it comes to, well, anything. Fair.
Pretty fair assessment there, Mr. Scampers. We're just full of optimism.
So much
after the
optimism.
2026 NFL draft.
Well, here's some optimism. We have someone else joining in the chat. Schlad143, never seen channel before, but letting you guys know you popped up into my feed. Something is working. Thank you for joining. I appreciate you. Like and subscribe. Join us next week. We come every
hit the
Tuesday.
algorithm, Sam.
We did. Yay. Something's working. Excitement. I mean, you know, we're going to continue to go this whole offseason and discussing these rookies as they've come in. I think it's great that you point out Jonah Coleman. There's plenty of others that we want to talk about too. So we'll make sure you guys, again, like, subscribe, tune in next week to Women of Fantasy Football and everything else that we have here. I'll leave with this one in terms of making sure we talk about every little note. I'm still waiting to see what the news is on Aaron Rodgers. Scampers is as well. Scampers saying, if A-Rod isn't speaking Laotian right now, I'd be shocked. I agree. He's somewhere just doing this and making sure people know where the exit rows are on a plane or on a boat. I just feel like he's not with us right now.
Is it Laotian or is it Laotian?
Laotian? I could be wrong. I'm fine with being wrong.
We'll find out next week. Tune in.
Tune in next week. Good luck with your rookie drafts, guys, as you have them coming in. And we'll see you next week as we continue to go down this list of amazing fantasy prospects going into the 2026 season. So good luck, guys, and we'll see you next week.